we've talked about Nightfall's connection to Halo 5 Guardians and the role that Locke plays in Halo 5 Guardians and that sort of connection point. We haven't actually talked a lot about some of the connection that we have with the Master Chief Collection and Halo Combat Evolved specifically. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the setting for Nightfall. We're going to look at a little VIDOC, but when we started working on this, and Frank is a key player in this as well, Sergio, our director, Sergio Mimica Gazan, felt really strongly that he wanted the setting to be a character in the story. And at the same time, Paul Shearing, our writer, was starting to really think about if it's a character, what does that character do, and how does that character, which is the setting of the Halo ring, Alpha Halo from Halo 1, how does that setting sort of evolve and how does it drive sort of the plot dynamics? So we'll talk about a little bit more of that in a few minutes, but let's take a look at a VIDOC we put together. I think it was Jeremy Patno on your team who originally had the idea of this fragment of Alpha Halo being a compelling setting. So let's learn a little bit more about it.
There's another character that features very heavily in Nightfall, something we've wanted to do for a really long time, which is explore a Halo in a piece of Halo linear content.
In the first game, Alpha Halo Installation 04 is discovered by humanity and by the Covenant, and there's a fight. Neither side at this time knows that the ring is actually part of an array designed to kill all sentient life in the galaxy.
It's an ancient artifact that a long-vanished civilization abandoned apparently 100,000 years ago. Think about it as a 10,000-kilometer radius band floating in the sky. The outside surface is all engines and metal and mysterious alien technology. The inside surface is terraformed, so it's livable. It's sort of like Earth.
Over the course of the game, you end up as the Master Chief destroying the ring.
There was a small fragment that got out of the original system,
and it ends up in this weird, irregular sort of orbit around this unidentified sun.
So imagine this sort of curved fragment of this 10,000-kilometer band tumbling and spinning dangerously ever closer to this red giant.
A dozen, 16 hours or whatever a day, it's directly facing the sun and experiencing extreme temperatures and then flopping back over.
So in the night cycle, it's just about livable. When it gets into a day cycle, as it spins to face that sun, it can't control the temperatures. The technology isn't that good. So they have to do everything before the sun rises, otherwise they're going to be burnt to a crisp.
And so landing a group of operatives onto a surface of a ring that's doing that and saying, you got to complete your exercise, your operation in 16 hours, good luck, is kind of what we had in mind for Nightfall. The reason we went to Iceland is because they have some ridiculously awesome landscapes.
Everywhere you point a camera in that country, you get a beautiful shot.
I mean, everybody transformed that quarry into a burning hot, deadly fragment of an alien artifact.
It gave us a truly alien place that matched a lot of the look and feel of the Halo, but also had kind of a damaged, raw feel to it, which was very important because we're not exploring an intact, perfect, beautiful Halo. We're exploring a little chunk of it.
I will admit, I grabbed a couple of rocks that I brought home and said I have rocks from a Halo ring. I'm kind of a Halo dork, so that's how I roll.
So, as Kiki mentioned, the fragment of the Halo ring, Jeremy said, why don't we set it on a Halo? And then we discussed that, and we talked about which Halo, and we ended up with Alpha Halo, which was obviously destroyed, and that brought in some really exciting sort of potential. And that came in sort of in the middle of the development of the script. Can you describe a little about how that sort of changed that process and the way we thought about the characters?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of coming from a place of knowing that Paul and Sergio wanted to create a dynamic where the cast goes on this mission and the nature of that mission very quickly changes and the story becomes about how that set of characters deals with sort of that shift in mission and what it means for them. And so it became really interesting when the idea of using the fragment came up, because we kind of dug into how could this fragment really have ended up there? What were the sort of physics of the event at the end of Halo 1? What could that orbit mean? How could that orbit work and help drive the plot that Sergio and Paul felt very strongly about? And then it became just very mechanic, like what is the right size? What is the shape? Like how big is the fragment? And then, you know, it's still functional, but what does it mean for it to still be functional and broken? What does that look like? How does that affect the plot? And so it was kind of this interesting sort of forensic analysis of the explosion of the original ring, and then looking forward, what can we define around it to help drive the plot? So it was a pretty fun process. It was fun to acquaint Sergio and Paul with the deep nerd fiction, which we all love. But I will say they embraced it. You were there hand-holding through that
Paul
process.
had just come off of working on Yukon,
that's
which
right.
is kind of a Western, and you know, we're explaining to him, no, this fragment of this orbital ring has functional slip space drive, huge energies, and you know, he's trying to get out of 6-shooters. And we had fun sort of really just nerding out about the science that's involved, and we did make some proper scientific phone calls to the right people. But it actually it ended up working really well with the story we'd already kind of broken, and it ended up sort of inserting itself smoothly and definitely improving it, I feel. So.
Yeah, and I can confirm that Kevin Grace is indeed a kleptomaniac. He's stolen things from foreign countries.
Yes, he obviously hasn't seen the Brady Bunch, or he wouldn't have tried that. But the
Yes,
4
they were
people
afraid of
old
the
enough to
curse.
get that, Claude.
Yeah.
So we and actually maybe you can explain how that influenced the naming, which is always by far the most controversial thing anybody does in any fiction, whether it's movies or games.
Yes, second to credits, naming is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we, again, kind of getting back to wanting this setting to be a character in the story, I think we landed really quickly on you know, sort of the nature of that orbit, and we'll talk more about sort of the impact on plot soon, but I think that became a key point. And so Nightfall and the idea that not only was the environment changing, but they also were sort of being driven by a very dire schedule. Defined by
as
that
we
orbit.
were.
Yes, as we always are.
Yeah.
And so, so Nightfall really came from that.